Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Two and a Half Salesmen. I'm your host, Mario, together with my phenomenally looking host, Julio, with another episode where we talk all things sales in a completely raw and unedited format. Julio, how are you, man?
Very good, mate. Very good. How are you feeling? Because I know you've been coming out with hay fever.
Oh, yeah, the allergies here are just horrible. I am like 20% of my cognitive performance.
It's all right. It's usually
And
better
if
than
one
most
point
anyway.
starts if at one point I start scratching my eyes out, just ignore it.
It's okay. I'll just stop your camera. Don't worry.
Just stop my camera, like with the first video that we shot.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have a cool guest today, my good friend Milovan. He is the former CRO of Shift, and now he has its own thing. Milovan, how you doing, man? How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing better than you, based on what you said before we jumped on the recording.
Even not based on what you said.
Yeah, that's not too typical.
Anyways, yeah, but I'm doing well, honestly. Won't complain. I can, but won't complain. So
you can't complain, but won't complain.
yeah, I won't.
All right,
but I won't. So it's okay.
There we go. So tell us a little bit about yourself, right? So a little bit about time at Shift. This is kind of where you and I met, and then what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so prior to starting my own company, I was the VP of Revenue Operations at Shift. Basically, my job was I was responsible for for all the revenue that was generated in the company. I mean, in terms of growing it, and making sure that teams are in place to deliver on the revenue targets. Right? Obviously, there was a bunch of people involved, a bunch of teams involved. My take on revenue operations is a little bit different than what majority of people would say, in terms of that being a data role type of thing, in terms of enabling the sales team. My take on revenue operations is that it's literally just revenue. You can call it revenue operations or whatever, but that's kind of how I perceive it. So yeah, I had like 80, 70, 80, I don't know, 90 people that reported up to me in terms of operations and sales. As Shift, we built that from ground up. And after that,
it's all bootstrap, right?
What's up?
It was all bootstrapped?
No. I helped raise Series A, left just before Series B was raised, like a couple of month and a half before. It was like 15 or 18 and 15 million respectively, I think. And it was backed off of the growth and the revenue that we've been generating, right? And I left a year and a half ago, February, I think, to start my own company called Drive Sales. So that's where we're currently sitting, and yeah,
that's when you decided you don't want a peaceful corporate life. You would just rather lose years of your life trying to do something on your own.
Well, look, building a product is very fun.
Difficult.
Fun. I'm going to use fun.
We are using fun instead of stress now, right?
I'm going to use fun. I'm going to use a lot of fun. But yeah, I decided it's time for me to take my own path, right? And do what I believed was what was necessary within the industry that I was very familiar with. So I kind of decided to go with that, obviously. And yeah, year and a half ago. So still here.
Cool. Well, let's touch a little bit about the revenue part, right? So you said 90 people?
Mario, sorry, 1 second. Today's topic?
Oh, yeah, I didn't introduce today's topic.
It's all right. No worries. I do know you're running on fumes. It's okay.
I am running on fumes. Yeah, well, before we began taping, we decided that we will talk about revenue operations, or just generating revenue, and how to manage like multiple teams when it comes to generating revenue. So that would be your marketing, sales, and I don't know if you guys get client success, but basically marketing, sales, and client success, right? So from a basically a CRO position, right? So chief revenue officer, right? So this is our topic for today.
Perfect.
Well, kick it off, man. Julio, kick it off with maybe a few questions.
Yeah, like I'm quite keen to. So Milovan, if we do the promotion at the end, but I think it's going to be quite useful to understand now. So what would be the problems that you fix at this point for your customers?
So at my current company, so
yes, your company right now.
At my company, yeah. So we are currently solving the pain for moving companies globally. So we're building a software, basically a CRM, specific tailored for moving companies to streamline their entire operations. So that's just because it's very fragmented. The industry can sound like, oh, why don't you buy something off the shelf? It doesn't specifically fit the needs of that fragmented industry. So it's not easy to buy something off the shelf and make it, usable properly within the moving space. Now, on top of the software play, we also have two services. One is like sales as a service, where we basically are able to become a sales rep for a moving company and basically a B2C part. And then we also have like service play where we help moving companies perform video surveys as a service as well, which is like, in a nutshell, if someone is moving, instead of someone coming to your house and taking a note of everything you're looking to ship, right? We do everything over video. We create an inventory list, an itemized list of everything that's going, and we send that over to the moving company, and then they take care of it in terms of what packing materials they need, trucks, and all that stuff. So when you solve a bunch of, what I've heard and I've seen a bunch of pain within the moving industry. So that's our current clientele.
Okay. And so like going back to the shift, right? Well, to the shift from shift, right? What was let's say then, and this is a topic that we always like to discuss, what was the hardest parts of moving from employed, but still in a quite high level position to actually be your own boss?
Well, for me personally, not much, because I generally, wherever I worked, I always treated that company as my own. So I don't know if that's healthy or not. That's a different conversation that we can have. But I kind of just moved. When I moved, I just started building my own company in the same way I look to help build other companies that I've been a part of, right? So I haven't specifically changed my mindset much. There are other things that became more my problems that they weren't previously. Payroll, admin, dev, all of the other stuff, right? But
the paperwork.
Paperwork, a bunch of other stuff, not just paperwork. You have to pay people. You need to have money to pay people. But it's also but the actual management style and the way that I deal with people that work with me, I don't specifically think I've changed much from one place to the other.
So let's maybe dive into a little bit, because the biggest issue with running multiple, we're kind of jumping from your
we did.
Well, I will get back to shift and the key thing here, and this is what Julie and I talk all the time about it. It is, so how did you came to shift in fairly early stages, right? So you build the revenue operations for it, but to talk a little bit about making sure all of your revenue teams are aligned. So when I say teams, I mean like different departments, like aligning marketing, aligning it with sales, and aligning it with client success. So talk a little bit about that, and then we will dive into it.
So yeah, the play there was a little bit different, right? Because marketing specifically was a different segment, right? So it was a different segment. The term marketing was used differently at Shift.
Okay.
Versus what you generally would say. But let's not dive into that segment right now. But let me focus on the other things. the play at shift is you have very big teams. You had a couple of things. So in layman terms, you had an SDR setup, you had an AE setup, you had client success, and you also had like in terms of AE, but like you have AE, whatever the position is that actually help AEs close business in terms of paperwork and whatever. I forgot the actual position for it.
Like a sales admin type of person.
Sales admin.
Yeah, sales admin. Okay.
Sales admin.
So sales admin. So in terms of those names, right? If you use that nomenclature, we had 5 different teams that I ended up reporting to me, and the biggest team actually was the client success team. So because the sales volume there was very quick in terms of the deal velocity, it was less than 10 days from a lead coming in to a lead closed.
Oh yeah, because they needed to move quickly, right?
Yeah. So generally, right, the deal frequency was very high, but the deal size wasn't huge. It wasn't 50 grand. We had 50, 100 grand deals, but there are smaller moves. And then you had to do this. So in terms of the first thing is, as we've kind of grown, we had one person do the SDR and the AE thing. Then it became too much for one person to deal with. Just physically, volume wise, we couldn't handle, one person couldn't handle both the SDR piece and the AE piece in terms of closing business.
Okay, so your kind of turning point was, okay, my full cycle guys now just cannot handle it in case of the volume. So I do, and we can dive into this a little bit later. So what were the actual metrics that you were tracking on a kind of day-to-day, month-to-month, week-to-week basis, right? Because being in RevOps or revenue, like revenue operations, but just revenue in general, setting up systems of data and then actually deriving insights from the data, that's your, I would say, number one job.
I agree. And if the data is muddy, let's say, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Huge problem. And at the start, throughout my time there, I had huge issues with data, right? It was muddy, it was cluttered, it was a bunch of noise that wasn't specifically helping us drive more deals, right? So what we've ended up doing is we realized there's a breaking point in terms of that the people who are closers, so to speak, right? AEs ended up like people who are able to close more frequently that are they started doing mundane work for them, and they started losing themselves in a bunch of business work. So we had to separate. We had to separate to basically realign focus from each. So we created departments so we can realign who does what effectively.
At what point? And Julia, I'll let you chime in a little bit, but I just want to kind of write it on here. At what point did you decide, oh, we need post sales, right? So we need client success at one point, because I remember client success kind of emerged in 2015, 2016 as something new. I know Jocko van der Hoes first kind of putting it on a spotlight, right? Like 5-6 years ago. So when was that aha moment? Oh crap, we need this.
And this is the thing. I think client success for us was always there. It was just named differently. Yeah, you can just name it whatever you want. Account management, client success. It doesn't specifically matter, because at the end of the day, post-sales, as you mentioned it, is where a bunch of problems come up, especially in a very high deal velocity environment where you know I used to live in, right? We close 300 to 500 deals a month. So that's a high velocity. And the thing is, you have to have people who are able to handle that much responsibility on the end, because in your general SaaS or in your general like whatever industry, you sell something and then you nurture that client. You generally sell a software, you generally sell whatever, and then oh my God, everything is going great. Do you need any help? Oh, let me send an email. Oh, do you need any help with onboarding? Do you have any questions? This was not it. This had to be super hands-on, because post sales is where the problems came up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I throw in like a question, probably actually for the both of you, because I don't come from SaaS, right? So this whole idea about everything needs to be split like at, as to the atomic level, obviously was a bit weird for me at the beginning. And then I can see some of the values behind it, right? Because obviously customer success sometimes is just even customer service to some extent, just on steroids, right? But some services like probably Shift would need this, but would it be such a blasphemy to think in SaaS to have a lot more people on the full cycle idea instead of just going over this splitting every single responsibility down?
Look, so Julio, I am absolutely all for full cycle. I generally love full cycle more. This was built out of necessity, not necessarily out of what I thought might be the best way going forward. This was just built out of necessity at that particular time. And I generally enjoy full cycle way more as a role. Full cycle sales, maybe make a client success or account management, maybe have the two roles, everything until the sale happens, and then post sales, that's fine. But I don't necessarily think that you should be looking at potentially like splitting everything up in every, like you said, atom wise. So from that perspective, I don't necessarily think that's wise. It also depends on industry, depends on a bunch of things. It kind of is tailored to your industry, into your company, and what you have available to be able to do the job well, right?
Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering this because I put myself on a different spectrum, right? And I'm thinking, you're having a good cold call with someone, you had a good interaction, then you book them for a meeting with someone else, right? So the prospect is starting on a high, and then it goes to someone else. It could be a mismatch or whatever. And I'm sure from the pure productivity perspective, splitting it is better, because that's the same reason why the factories have got, split areas of production. But I'm just thinking, if I were a customer, if I like Mario, I don't want to suddenly be handed off to Milovan, because I can't be guaranteed Milovan is as good as Mario. It's possible. And if it's a great organization, maybe that's the case, but there's a lot of personal touch missing. That's just something I always wondered when I was...
well, it all began with predictable revenue, right?
Predictable fucked it all.
Account executive. Well, here's one of the problems, since we are kind of diving into this avenue, right? And you and I talked about this. Who do we give, or who do we employ for the SDR position, right? No. Better question. How do we envision a career path of a salesperson in SaaS? And I would say there all the problems begin, right?
Well,
because we envision...
Actually, Mario, you gave a very good idea in the last one, which is you get them to start from the customer success job.
I know.
Because or customer service, right? Like this is what I used to do as well. You start with like gathering feedback, getting better. And then honestly, I still think the SDRs is probably one of the mentally hardest jobs. You're probably going to lose a lot of people because they think, fuck, sales is just doing this all day, which is just not, And so actually you're creating a higher churn rate because people think like, you got all these people that want to just get out of being an SDR, which is the worst possible way to...
And we give it to the youngest people.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we are at a specific point in time when it's super hard getting a meeting, especially in B2B. Much harder than it was, let's say, pre-pandemic or in mid 2000s, like 2010s. Like
mid 2020, people will take a meeting for any reason.
Oh yeah.
So. But
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
at home. Fuck it. Just let's take a meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
And-
Milovan, what do you think about this as well? Because me and Mara are going on our tangent on our own as usual.
Well, you guys are fine. SDR, this is the problem, right? If you have a veteran 10, 15, 20 years of doing this, they have to really love calling people to do the SDR part then.
Yeah.
Because
But this is common, like even in recruitment, most people, which is where I come from, which is super hard prospecting, right? And you build your network and then you do less and less prospecting. It's kind of as it used to be. And that's the same as if you're an established SaaS seller, you will get more and more from referrals, most likely.
And also, look, for recruiting, I have like buddies here in Serbia that, I have my 110 people, and that I kind of just...
And you move them around. Well, I mean, recruitment is a very particular sector, right? But like, sorry, Milovan, you had the points because something you wanted to add.
We just went on a tangent
again.
again.
You're fine. You're fine. Look, I genuinely like, it's very hard to get an SDR because generally, as Mario and you said, it's fresh out of college people or still in college people that have specifically no idea what they're doing, not through the fault of their own, but it's just a fact. Like when I started my first job, I had no idea what I was doing, right? And which is fine as well. So it's very hard to have someone that loves teaching to be able to convey the importance of SDR and that they know how to do it really well with a bunch of experience. It's really hard to find someone to be at your company because generally people with a bunch of sales experience, SDR, whatever, that know how to do like cold calling, know how to like close business through social selling or whatever else, right? They are looking for higher up positions. They don't want to do that their entire lives. They want to have management positions. Some that love it, they're very rare. They're very rare.
But this is an issue in all sales departments, right?
Yeah.
All salespeople want to become managers because they want to get away from the phone.
Do you know what? When I began, like in early 2000s, we have the saying that says, "Those who can sell make money. Those who can't sell just manage other salespeople."
But again, this is super harsh because you have this.
I don't know if I can agree with that, Mario.
No, I don't.
Player coach, baby. No, I'm joking. But it is. All three of us are part of Justin Michael's group, and I don't know if you caught it. A guy who is an AI. They wrote a line saying, "Guys, I am now being forced to generate my own pipeline. Can someone help me?" Literally, there was a message on WhatsApp.
And I would have totally just said, yes, just go talk to HR and hand in your resignation, mate, because you shouldn't work in sales. That would have been my answer. But look, to Mario's point, though, it is true because I work in sales training now, and it is just a fact that a lot of sales traders are washed up salespeople that don't know jack shit about sales.
Oh, 100%.
And this is a lot with all of these coaching jobs that you find. I mean, come on, you have these 24-year-old life coaches. I'm like, you literally haven't had enough life. Who you gonna coach? The 19-year-olds? Tell them, the next 5 years is a lot of drinking. By the way,
I remember in one of the WhatsApp groups, a guy posts and says, "Hey, I've just published the ultimate guide to ultimate." That was the word he used, ultimate guide for lead generation. And I go to his LinkedIn, and he's like 20. Like, what ultimate? You're 20. You don't know shit. Like me at 35, I was like, fuck, I still need to read like 100 books until I consider myself to be a senior salesperson and do this and do this and do this. But this guy's already putting up ultimate guides.
Mario, mate, you just might not be good enough that you took it 35 years. I'm just saying.
I mean, look, guys, if we gotta be, I was listening to Jobs, the biography, right? And again, the fucker at 26 was a millionaire or something like that. So I'm like, when you put things in perspective, there are some people out there that have realistically cleaned the floor with us, period.
You'll find them. They're extremely
Yes.
good though.
But
Yeah.
do remember that Jobs and Gates and all of these guys had tremendous amount of excellent circumstances going their way. That's number one. And number two, remember where they lived. They lived in a heart of Silicon Valley. And they brilliant, yes. Smart, yes. But right place at the right time. That's it.
I mean, look,
Because
yes.
I don't like
Mario, we
mentioning-
can sit here and make excuses all day.
I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying
there are
that
billionaires everywhere in the world. Some of them were born in the slums in India. Yeah. So I agree. Statistically speaking, they have been born luckier, but none of us have struggled for clean water when we were kids,
no,
right?
we
So
haven't. No,
like
I
we
agree.
all had decent, you know. And let's be honest, I probably in my younger age, I played too much video games where I could have designed my own stuff. I could have I drank too much alcohol when I could have been reading
I
books and
played a lot
studying.
of video
So,
games. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, oh my god, this is probably the episode where we're going
But
to
look,
train.
Julio, again, now you have the experience to be that life coach Mario doesn't like. You know, now you can use that experience and tell people how to actually live their life effectively.
Well, I mean, look, I think that I personally hate any coach, and I know a few of them, that claims this is the way, right?
Yeah.
The only place where this is the way works is the Mandalorian, and it's for a very specific reason. Anywhere else where you're telling me this is the one way to do things, the first thing I want to do is that you're a fucking idiot. Because
I agree.
that's like literally that's like a Nazi mentality. This is the only way things should be done, blah blah. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
Especially in sales.
Especially in sales, where you can test everything and
Mhm.
see what works. I am a giant fan of, so whenever I do coaching / training / workshops, and whenever I get a question, well, how do you do a cold call? Or how do you write emails? Or how do you do this?
Mhm.
I say, well, I've seen this produces best
Mhm.
results,
Mhm.
but every industry is different and every problem is different. So go test several variants and see which one converts better.
Yeah.
At least in sales or revenue, since we are talking about, well, Milovan is trying to talk about revenue.
Milovan has not been doing much talking, has he?
Dude, this is the easiest podcast you ever do. You just
This
sit
is-
and
this
not
You
is-
just
talk.
sit there and
This is
listen to
bliss.
us rant.
This is bliss.
You just sit and test everything, man. Just sit and test everything. So let's Julie and I do this. We just kind of go
railroad
off track
shit.
and on rants. So so you now started your own company, and you and I had this conversation about finding sales guys, right? So tell me a little bit about, you can touch your own company a little bit, but you can also reflect on your time at Shiv about it's called now sales enablement, but basically training the salespeople up. So how did you guys train? Or how do you train up your guys now? Well, you can talk both ways.
Yeah, I mean, the training piece is generally the toughest one. Not because, you know, a couple of things. How to effectively do it. Do the people you're coaching want to be coached, first of all? Second of all, do the people who you are coaching actually view you as a person that is qualified enough to coach them on X topic?
Yep.
And there's a bunch of things that come into play, right? So luckily for me, I had, as Mario said, circumstances that ended up working in my favor. Everywhere I worked, people, I would say, actually, I'm going to assume, because I don't want to talk about myself that much, because I would assume that people thought I knew what I was doing based on the result I produced. Right.
You knew what you were doing. Come on.
But I actually, sorry, I have a point here, which I've also seen from my own life, and is that when I was managing a recruitment team and I was on the phone, and I was going and putting deals on the board, not a single person doubted anything I said.
Yeah.
Like they see me, they see me walk the talk. The moment in which I moved from a sales manager to a sales director, then that gap bridged in the space of 3 months. And
3
people were like,
months?
yeah, well, also turnover is really high. So in 3 months, we would have new starters, etc.
Yeah.
And there were people being like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
I
That's a
had
problem.
I had that issue when I was my first team, and I talk about this all the time. First team I led when I was in my early 20s, I burned to the ground because from top producer and top seller, I went into management position where I did almost no sales. So everything I talked to was like, you are bullshitting me. Like, why would I trust you? Because there were only a handful of guys who could remember how I did and what I did and the way I did it and my results. But I wasn't on a fucking board anymore. I wasn't up there. Unfortunate reality.
Yeah, the other thing is that one of the things that I guess fortunate for me was I always stayed super close to sales in terms of helping deals get closed, helping pushing deals forward, even though I had other responsibilities, right? Because that way that the team knew that they can rely on me, that I have their back if something comes up. And that way it made the training sessions a lot easier than if I just came in and just say, hey, look, this is what you're going to do. Don't ask me why, you're just going to do it. It made it a lot easier. And then there were also times when the sales team wasn't delivering as they should have. And I was being an absolute pain in the ass then. I was being an absolute pain in the ass, and everybody hated me, which is fine. What I've done is I've ended up having, I remember this vividly. I got frustrated to oblivion, right? And I ended up having daily call reviews with the entire team. I literally blocked
daily.
I blocked off the calendar for absolutely everybody. I blocked off their calendars. Everybody had to come in because we had 3 shifts. Everybody had to come in for an hour. So they came in for an hour every single day, and I was an absolute menace. Like I was an absolute menace every single day.
Julia likes this.
No, for a month.
Just press the salespeople harder.
I don't mind.
I don't mind.
I was a menace, and I knew I was a menace. And I think it was 3 or 4 weeks every day that I've done it, every single day. And I just ripped into it. And the thing is, I didn't rip like, we review the calls that everybody listens. Everybody listens to a call someone else did. And then what I've done is everybody else after a week and a half starts giving feedback to that person, and I go last. So I have the
team accountability.
Yeah, peer review,
yeah,
and then this is the thing. While I was doing this, we also went through my calls because I took calls as well. So I want them to hear how I do calls as well. Yeah. So that way, and I let them rip into me. I have zero issues with that. Like I thought, so these are the last 15, 20 calls I've done that I managed to call today, whatever. Pick any of those. And then, let's talk. I didn't do it always. I did that specifically with, I did it a bunch of times with account executives at that time. And I did a bunch with SDRs, but generally, there's a bunch of ways that you can approach training. Some of the stuff I did was, when I look back, it's terrible. I should have done it that way. But at the end of the day, it did produce results in terms of growth. It was what if I remember off the top of my head, I think it was 300%, 3x, 5x, 60%, 30% year over year, something like that. So we grew from like what, over $35 million in 2 years, from like, let's say, less than 30K when I started. But the point is, there's a bunch of ways to approach training, right? But one of the main things is the people that you're coaching, right, are able to relate to the person that is coaching them as well, that they find them as the main expert, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap it up a little bit.
Not sure what we're gonna wrap up today.
This was just a very pleasant conversation with no topic that we introduced halfway through the podcast. Well, we touched on several subjects, right? So a little bit of an alignment between different teams, a little bit about mindset, a little bit about sales enablement. So yeah. I don't know.
What's the recap is bring back full cycle sellers for SaaS. If your sellers aren't doing much work, get down and just do some work with them, or just stay on their backs.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway here is, if you are a player coach, so you don't have a dedicated team that's running sales and coaching, you better have credibility with your team when it comes to sales. Otherwise, they will not fucking listen to you. Sales guys are famous for a lot of things, but they're most famous so they're gigantic inflated egos. So
very true.
Milovan, we will give you 30 seconds to do a little bit of promo wherever you want, and then we will say goodbye.
Any cars you need to sell or anything like that?
I actually have. I'm looking. So promo, if anybody is looking to sell cars, expensive cars in the US, let me know. I'm looking to buy. So let me know. But anyways, I don't really have a promo. If anybody who's listening to this is within or knows anybody within the moving industry globally, check out drivesales.com. That would be it, because I don't promote anything else other than my company. So other than that, it's all good. If you have any questions for me outside of what we do, I'll be more than happy.
You can reach Milovan on LinkedIn, and as always, we will put Milovan's LinkedIn address in the description of the video.
That'll be awesome.
All right. Thank you, Milovan. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you next week.
Enjoy, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.